go with his 40-foot yacht. Well, actually, I made the yacht up, but Orono out there by Lake Minnetonka, you have to throw something like that in. Brette is going to speak to us today on Allen's apple.
Thank you, Lord. You're welcome. Good morning, fellow Tech Masters and welcome guests. Today I'm going to tell you about someone who is one of my personal heroes historically. Does everybody here know who Alan Turing is? Well, for those of you who don't, you'll learn a little bit about him today. You'll learn a little bit about his upbringing. I'll talk about some of his major accomplishments. Then I'm going to delve into an area of his life that a lot of people don't know about. And it's that, I think, will even be something new to the people who know who Alan Turing is. So let's go ahead and get started. Alan Turing, born in London, June 12, 1912. His parents, Julius Matheson Turing and Ethel Turing. As a small child, Alan was very, very much interested in science and mathematics. Now, in 1912, that wasn't actually that great of a thing. Math and science wasn't what math and science is today. So his parents urged him very early on to start studying classic literature, do other things. Thankfully, Alan persisted and was able to continue to study science. And by the age of 16, he had written essays poking holes in Newton's laws of motion at 16. And those were published and are still there today. As with all very, very young geniuses, they tend to be a little bit eccentric. Now, Alan was no different. His family members talked about his nonstop obsession with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, saying that they would often find him alone acting out this very scene with the poison apple. He seemed to be obsessed with this beautiful queen turning to evil and the whole apple thing. And it was a small obsession with his that he kept going back to as a young kid. Thankfully, he got past that, and as he started to go through college, he has a whole list of very, very important major accomplishments to his name. Probably the most important is the Turing machine. The Turing machine is essentially a theory that Alan came up with that stated a machine could be built that could compute any mathematical algorithm as long as it was read from something. In this case, it was tape. He also came up with the theory that you could build a machine that people could program software to give instructions to these machines, and the machines could basically play out any algorithm needed. Arguably, this is why we have computers. The research he did in this area, the machines he built, are why we have CPUs today. How CPUs work are very much based on this. So, while we have our geniuses in our era, right, know that even their accomplishments were on the shoulders of the giants before. The iPhone, the Surface, all of these things we have are based largely on some of the stuff that Turing had come up with. Now, the Turing machine wasn't the only thing he had. In World War II, he is credited with shortening the war almost over 2 years. Working with the British government, he was able independently to crack encryption codes that the German army generals were sending back and forth to each other. He intercepted messages from Hitler, he intercepted messages to Hitler. Winston Churchill said that because of Turing's genius, the war ended at least 2 years earlier than it would have otherwise. And the last thing Turing probably did that is noteworthy is after the Turing machine kind of got traction and they started to build computers based on that theory, he started to think a little bit more about artificial intelligence. He started to ask questions, well, what if a computer started to think? What if a computer could be intelligent? In order to determine that, you would need some sort of test, right? So he derived the Turing test. And the intent of the Turing test was directly aimed to understand if a computer had intelligence or not. And this test is still used today and one of the fundamental tests used in all artificial intelligence. So halfway through his life, he's basically set the groundwork for computing. He's helped end World War II, and he's considered the father of artificial intelligence. Unfortunately for Alan, this wasn't the most interesting part of his story. And before I go into this part of it, I want to ask questions. Does everybody here know that Alan was a homosexual? He was. In 1952, Alan fell in love with a man named Arnold Murray. A very private man, no one knew this about him. He went to work and went through his day-to-day life. and no one was the wiser until one day his apartment was broken, or his house was broken into. The cops came to investigate, and Alan mentioned something about Arnold. The cops started to say, "Whoa, what's going on here?" And basically got Alan to admit that he was in a relationship with a man. At that point, both of them were charged with indecency because in 1952 in Britain, being homosexual was illegal. Alan was given a choice: imprisonment or chemical castration, injection shots of estrogen. Alan, very much attached to his work and his freedom, decided to go with the estrogen injections. As a result, Alan lost his job, he lost his security clearance, he became impotent, he grew breasts, and he lost his ability to travel. And in 1952, Alan was found dead in his house. The cause of death? Well, like Alan's favorite story, how the witch gave Snow White the poison apple, he filled an apple with cyanide, ate it, and killed himself. So Alan Turing, born in 1952, or 1912, died in 1954. Father of computing, father of artificial intelligence, very helpful in ending wars, and a homosexual. But unfortunately, at the time, the latter overshadowed the former. Now, I know we're not in this era anymore, right? This probably would never happen nowadays. And with all the stuff with, gay marriage and all that sort of thing, no matter where you fall on the spectrum of these issues, these things are very important to remember, because even if you're against the gay marriage thing, it's important when you meet people to judge them on their character, their accomplishments, what they contribute, and not the old adage, race, religion, creed, or sexual preference. Alan Turing is one of my all-time heroes. I think our lives are substantially better because of him, and I think this is a story that needs to be told that is not told enough, so I decided to tell it today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Loris.
Brett, before you turn it back to Loris, if I could give you an addendum that recent research has shed light on the original belief that he committed suicide. It may have been carelessness in his lab.
Yeah, there's looking at statements on that about the cyanide for gold.